Hello everybody, I'm Nora Burrows and I have missed you all. I'm so glad to be back doing these videos. I really missed it. I had kind of a crazy summer doing lots of things that are, some of which are quilt related, I'll tell you about them, and one of which is a festival that I just participated in selling my quilts, which is why I was neglecting my YouTube video love because I was just really spending all my time making quilts and quilted placemats for that festival, and that took place last weekend, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. I also want to do a little book review today. I want to tell you about my trip to London, where I visited Liberty of London, and show you some of the fabric that I got there. And an upcoming sew along, not that I'm hosting, but that I'm participating in, and maybe you all will want to participate in it too. So lots to talk about today, but let me tell you about the festival. So I basically, even though I've made lots of quilts in my life, or in the last 4 years, because I have only been quilting for 4 years, but even though I've made lots of quilts, I've pretty much given them all away as gifts. And so last spring, this past spring, I decided to do this art festival, and I applied for it, I got in, but I kind of started with nothing to sell because I didn't have any inventory. So I spent all of this past spring and summer going as quickly as I could to make quilts and quilted placemats for this event. And I ended up with 12 sets of 4 placemats, 12 sets of 4, and 11 quilts. I sold, and I will say in terms of pricing, I started my pricing of the sets of 4 placemats at $65, and then I ended up lowering it to $55. I sold 1 set of placemats at $65, and then once I lowered it, I sold 3 sets out of that. So 4 sets total out of my initial 12. So I was happy with that. So in terms of my quilts, and I also was not sure how I was going to feel about selling the quilts, how I was going to feel afterwards about letting them go. And actually I feel totally fine. I sold 2 quilts. I sold my biggest quilts. And at the end of this video, I will post pictures of both of those quilts so that you can see what I'm talking about. Prior to the festival, I had wanted to do a little trunk show here of all of my quilts that I was going to sell, but I didn't have a chance. I may still do that with the quilts that I have remaining because I still have like 9 quilts left that I could show you. But in terms of the ones that sold, I made one that was kind of a checkerboard with florals and things like that, and that sold for $1,100. I priced that high, $1,100. I did not anticipate that that was going to go, but in terms of my materials, you know, the backing itself is $100, the batting was probably $40, the front fabric, there was a lot of piecing involved, so it was probably a couple $100 in fabric there, binding, thread, I mean, you all know it adds up, and so then you take your time on top of it. It took me quite a long time to make that quilt, so I felt morally and ethically fine pricing that quilt very high, and it sold. So that's great information to know that that is possible. And then I sold my second biggest quilt, which was much different than the first, very geometric. It was blues and grays and oranges and yellows, lots of triangles and stuff. Again, I'll post pictures at the end of this video, and I sold that quilt for $895. All the other quilts were less expensive and smaller, and those did not sell. So I still have those, and I think in another video I will show you all those quilts because that would just be kind of fun. So that's what I made, and I think it was successful. I would do the festival again, and now it's kind of nice. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because I would have liked to sell more quilts, but at the same time, since I didn't, I have that as inventory for next year. So that's kind of nice. I won't be so stressed and panicky to make as much as I possibly can in such a short amount of time. So I did, in the midst of all of this preparation for the festival, take a little trip this summer to London, where I visited Liberty of London. And if you're not familiar with Liberty of London, it is this beautiful department store. They sell all kinds of things, but they also have a full level of just fabric. So, you know, I had known of Liberty of London and I'd always wanted to visit. If you have not seen pictures of the building, it's worth Googling Liberty of London pictures and seeing the building. It's gorgeous. It was made out of 2 shipwrecked ships, back like a super duper long time ago. I'm gonna give you wrong information, but I think it was like the early 1800s or something. There was these beautiful ships that were shipwrecked, and so they used the material from these ships to make this building, and it's gorgeous. It was also where they filmed the new 101 Dalmatians. I don't think it's called 101 Dalmatians, the movie, the new one. Came out like last year. But anyway, they filmed it there. It's a gorgeous building, you should check it out. But I did get fabric at Liberty of London. I will say, the fabric is far more expensive. And it's a little bit different. Now, they do have traditional quilting cotton, but a very small amount of it. And my understanding is that people don't, even quilters don't go to Liberty of London to get the specific quilting cotton. They go there and there's a different type of fabric. I can't remember the name. Maybe you all know and you can comment about what the name of this. It's a little bit silkier. It's a little bit silkier, so it looks almost exactly like regular quilting cotton, but it has kind of almost a little bit silkier texture, and it has a specific name. Anyway, the whole floor is just of this type of gorgeous, beautiful fabric, and I'm gonna show you what I got. The fabric is, though, significantly more expensive, so it's about $25 a meter, and a meter is a little bit larger than a yard. So I didn't go as crazy as I would have liked because I had a little bit of sticker shock, but let me show you what I did purchase. Here is the beautiful piece that I just showed you. And I think all these fabrics that I got will go really nicely together. I love those burnt oranges, and kind of that cranberry red is so pretty. You can see these are all different, and I don't know in terms of like lines of fabric. Like here you have one designer and they have a line of fabric. It didn't feel that way to me, that they were, advertising by designer, but I just don't know enough about the Liberty of London fabrics, or how they how they choose their designers and that kind of thing to know. But this green is one of my favorite greens. It's not really a foresty green. It's more like a teal kind of green with these little bits of pink and purple. It's so pretty. I'll lay these out so that we can see them next to each other. And then here's kind of another, burnt orange, reddish with the bits of blue in there. And the prints themselves, the designs are just, they're so sophisticated. The colors are sophisticated, and the prints themselves. I mean, look at this one with the diamonds. And I got all of these, so I got, in terms of meters, most of them I got are 1 meter. Like I can feel that this is probably 1 meter, but a couple of them I got like 1.25 meters or 1.5 meters. I just was trying to get as many different prints as I could, but to be conscious of the budget. You know how that is. Oh, this one I think I got maybe 1.5 meters. This one feels a little heavier. It almost has like an Art Deco feel, this one, to me. Probably not to somebody who knows Art Deco, but that's how it feels to me. This one I got not to go with the quilt. This doesn't go with the rest of these, but the reason I got this is because it's specific. So this is the Liberty of London building. So you can see it says Liberty. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing, that while I was there, I should get some, actual Liberty of London fabric, but I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. That's kind of just to have. I also got the same one in black and white. So that's the exact same design in a different colorway. This is the only one I'm not sure about. I don't know if there's too much white in it. I really like all the solid colors of all of these, how there's not a lot of white. It's really very colorful. This one has more white, and so maybe I'll just use little bits of this around. It does have that same color palette. This one's a little bit more brown, but I think that they go nicely together. It's a little bit different than the other ones. And this one I think is the same. Is it the same pattern as one of these? Yes, it's the same pattern as this one here. So it's just a different colorway. This one, it's a little bit more teal and olive green with the blue and pink. This one also is a little bit different. I just love this print, so I got it, and I think it could go with the rest of these, but it is a little bit different in terms of style, I would say, but those flowers, they're so gorgeous. It's like you're lying in a little field of wildflowers. I have 2 more. Here's one. This also feels Art Deco to me. Doesn't it? Am I wrong about that? And then that fuchsia in the back and that green that I love. It's so good. Last one. I think will really tie all these together, even though it's super different. This one's more geometric, but I mean, how much do you love that? That's just so cool, right? I love this. That might be one of my favorite ones right here. Beautiful. I don't know exactly what that quilt is going to look like. I haven't completely visualized how I'm going to use those fabrics in the quilt, but that'll be a fun one, so stay tuned for that. In terms of books, I just finished this book, which I started a super long time ago, and I did mention this book in a previous video, a previous vlog. I had given a recommendation of 3 books that, you know, I thought you all would like, and this was one of them, but I hadn't read it yet. So I had started reading it, and I kind of had lightly recommended it in the fact that I hadn't read it, but I liked it so far. And now I finished it, and I can tell you it's one of the best books I've ever read. So this one is American Quilts, The Democratic Art, 1780 to 2007, Robert Shaw. Robert Shaw is a pretty famous, like, quilt knowledge man. I don't know if I would call him a quilt historian. I don't know a ton about him, but I've heard his name come up frequently when people talk about quilts and folks who know things about quilts. It goes all the way through that time period I just mentioned, starting in the 1780s. Lots of quilts to see, but also a lot of text. So it's going to talk a lot about, you know, each chapter is really a different point in history, and it talks a lot about what was going on with quilting at that time, how quilting was affecting society and culture, talking about specific quilts individually, quilt makers. It's just really a wealth of knowledge, and it's a huge book. Let's see how many pages. 376 pages, and the visuals are great. I mean, really high quality pictures. The other thing I will say that I was thinking is, so the way that this book is broken up into chapters is kind of by time period, like I just mentioned. And what I thought would be kind of cool is to take one quilt from each chapter and take, you know, design elements that I like from that quilt and combine all those quilts, I guess it would be 14 quilts because there's 14 chapters, and make it into one quilt. So it might be taking, you know, a certain block pattern from one, or colors from another, or a border from another, and taking those 14 favorite quilts and putting them together in a quilt of my own. I thought would be really fun and cool. So that's another project that I may start. I don't know. Last thing I wanted to mention is I am starting a quilt along. I haven't done a quilt along in probably over a year, and I am just thinking it would be really fun. So I thought maybe you would want to do the quilt along as well. It is the Sewcialites by the Fat Quarter Shop. Now, the term Sewcialites kind of gives me the I don't know, I don't love it. It makes me a little uncomfortable. But the quilt along seems great. They had a Sewcialites 1, which I think was not last year, but maybe the year before, but don't quote me on that. It was in the past. And basically there's blocks, but they show you how to make the blocks in 3 different sizes. And so that seemed to be successful. Sewcialites 1, and so I was thinking I would do Sewcialites 2, which starts at the end of October, and I think that they do a block a week, and I wouldn't make it exactly the way that they're making it. I'm not exactly sure what I would do, but I would kind of make the blocks with them, and if I wanted to make one of the small ones, I'd make one of the small ones, and if I wanted to make the large one, I'd do the large one. If I wanted to make more than one of the same block, I would kind of do that, just kind of see how it goes. In addition, I was thinking prior to the end of October, I would do some of the blocks from Sewcialites 1, and these are all free patterns, I should mention. So I'm really grateful for Fat Quarter Shop releasing free patterns because that's important to me. So I was thinking maybe I would go back to Sewcialites 1 since I never did that and start some of those blocks, and then I could incorporate those blocks also into the quilts with the Sewcialites 2 blocks as well. So if you made the Sewcialites 1 quilt, I would love to hear what you thought of that, what you thought of the blocks and the patterns. And I'll keep you posted on how that sew along is going for me. Maybe I'll do some videos of that as well. So don't forget to subscribe, and also feel free to follow me on Instagram. So even though I had kind of abandoned YouTube there for a couple months, I was relatively consistent on Instagram. My handle on Instagram is mostly Quilts by Nora, and it's a lot of fun over there. Check it out, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. It's so good to be back with you all. Bye.